The alarm clock's shriek was a physical thing, a jagged piece of glass dragged across the raw nerve of my consciousness. My hand shot out from under the thin blanket, slapping it into silence before it could wake the twins. For a moment, I just lay there in the dark, listening. The soft, synchronized breathing from the other side of the room, a rhythmic, fragile music, told me they were still asleep. Mia and Leo, my anchors and my millstones, the reason my feet hit the floor every morning at 4:45 a.m., and the reason they ached so profoundly every night. The apartment was a tomb of chilled air. Winter in the city seeped through the cracks around the windows, a persistent, unwelcome guest we couldn't afford to evict. I shuffled to the tiny kitchenette, my breath pluming in the air, and filled the kettle with just enough water for 1 cup of instant coffee. Luxury was a 2nd cup. Extravagance was cream. As the water heated, I moved on autopilot. 2 lunchboxes on the counter, the remains of a large pot of beans and rice, our dinner for the past 3 nights, were divided with surgical precision. A slightly larger portion for Leo, who was going through a growth spurt and was always hungry. A few carrot sticks salvaged from the reduced price bin. A single oatmeal cookie each, homemade, the sugar and butter stretching a recipe meant for 2 dozen into sustenance for a week. I wrapped them carefully, a small ritual of love that felt like a pathetic offering against the vastness of their needs. My own lunch was a smaller container of the same beans and rice. No cookie. By 5:30, I was dressed in my uniform, stiff polyester slacks and a polo shirt with a faded logo for Quick Clean Commercial Services. I kissed 2 warm, sleeping foreheads, my lips lingering for a stolen second, breathing in the scent of childhood sleep. Mrs. Henderson from 3B would be up at 6:15 to get them ready for school. She was a saint, taking my $40 a week, which was criminal underpayment for the peace of mind she gave me. I left a note on the table, as I always did. Be good for Mrs. H. I love you to the moon and back, twice. Mom. The walk to the bus stop was a battle against the wind. It cut through my second-hand coat, a reminder that warmth, like time, was a commodity I was perpetually short of. The bus was late, as usual, its interior smelling of damp wool and despair. I spent the 40-minute ride mentally running through my shifts. Office building downtown from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., then the rush to the other side of town for the 4-hour evening shift at the data entry warehouse. In between, a frantic hour to pick up the kids, get them started on homework, and gulp down something resembling a meal. The office building was a glass monolith, cold and impersonal. My world was its underbelly, the vacuum's drone, the chemical tang of floor polish, the hushed, empty spaces before the occupants arrived with their coffee and their important conversations. I moved from cubicle to cubicle, a ghost erasing the evidence of yesterday's labor. I found a half-eaten bagel in a trash can, still in its wrapper. Without a second thought, I tucked it into my bag. Breakfast for tomorrow. My supervisor, Mr. Borowski, had the permanent expression of a man who'd bitten into a lemon. He patrolled the floors, not to help, but to find fault. A smudge on a glass door, a wastebasket not perfectly aligned with the desk, a streak on a mirrored elevator wall. These were his trophies. At 1:55 p.m., as I was finishing the last bank of cubicles on the 22nd floor, my phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Henderson. Leo spiked a fever, 101.5, says his throat hurts. My heart dropped like a stone. I clocked out at 2 on the dot, my fingers trembling as I swiped my badge. The evening shift started at 3:30. There was no time, no sick days, no paid time off. I was a contractor. If I didn't work, I didn't get paid. And if I missed a shift, I could be replaced. I called the warehouse manager, Mr. Greer, my voice tight with panic. Mr. Greer, it's Elena Mendez. My son is sick. I have to take him to the clinic. I'll be a few hours late for my shift, but I can come in after. I can work extra. Mendez. His voice was a bored drawl. You know the policy. Shift starts at 3:30. You're either here or you're not. If you're not, don't bother coming back. Please, just this once. I've never missed a shift. I'll work through my break. Policy is policy. Your choice." The line went dead. Tears of frustration burned my eyes, but I blinked them back fiercely. Crying was a luxury, too. I scooped up Leo, his small body burning against mine, and rushed to the free clinic, Mia trailing behind, her small hand clutching my coat. The wait was 3 hours. By the time we got the diagnosis, strep throat, and the precious slip of paper for antibiotics, it was past 6 p.m. The evening shift was long lost. So was $72 before taxes. The pharmacy bill for the amoxicillin was $15. I handed over the cash, watching my grocery money for the week evaporate. The bus ride home was silent. Leo slept against my chest. Mia stared out the window, too wise for her 7 years. The next morning, I went to the office building, my stomach a knot of dread. Mr. Borowski was waiting for me at the time clock. "Mendez, my office." He didn't sit down. He just handed me a piece of paper. "Unauthorized absence from your secondary work site, impacting your reliability. Company policy dictates a disciplinary fine, $200. It'll be deducted from your next paycheck." The room swam. 200? "Mr. Borowski, I had a sick child. I have the doctor's note. I couldn't go to the other job. This job was finished. How can you fine me for not being somewhere else?" "Your employment contract with QuickClean requires disclosure of secondary employment that may impact performance. Your absence from the warehouse, which you listed, caused you to be fatigued and distracted during your shift here yesterday morning. We have standards." It was a lie, a transparent, cruel lie. I'd been a machine yesterday morning. But I saw it in his eyes. It wasn't about standards. It was about power, about reminding me I was replaceable. Arguing would just get me fired. Swallowing felt like gulping down broken glass. "I understand." That night, after the kids were in bed, I sat at the rickety kitchen table with a calculator and my last bills. The numbers were a relentless, crushing tide. Rent, $850. Utilities, $120. Mrs. Henderson, $160. Bus pass, $75. The $15 for medicine. The looming $200 fine. My next QuickClean paycheck, already meager, would be $415. I had $28 in cash in my wallet and a bank account that held $11.03. I was going to drown. The rent was due in 5 days. There was no food for the weekend. The feeling that rose in my chest wasn't just panic. It was a complete, utter void, a silence where hope used to be. I had fought so hard for so long, and it had led to this, a $200 fine for being a mother. My gaze fell on the small plastic jar on the windowsill, our dream jar, Mia's idea, a place to put spare change for a trip to the beach someday. It held $4.67 in pennies and nickels. I looked at it, this symbol of my child's fragile hope, and felt like the worst kind of failure. I would have to break it open tomorrow for milk. Then my eyes drifted to the corner store receipt beneath it. A garish, bright yellow ad was printed at the bottom. Mega Millions jackpot, $240 million. Change your life tonight. A bitter laugh escaped me. Change my life. I needed $400 to keep a roof over our heads, not $240 million. The lottery was a tax on people who couldn't do math, my father used to say. A stupid, desperate dream. But what was I, if not desperate? A reckless, wild thought took root. It was the kind of thought that comes when the last door slams shut. If I was going to fail, if we were going to be out on the street, then let it be after one last, stupid, defiant act of hope. Let me buy a ticket for a dream before I face the nightmare. I picked up the $28 from my wallet, our food money. I could get bread, eggs, cheap pasta. It would stretch. Or I put $20 back. I took the remaining $8 and, like a sleepwalker, I put on my coat and walked to the 24-hour convenience store on the corner. The bell jingled with fake cheer. The clerk, a tired-looking man, nodded. I went to the counter. My hand didn't even shake. It felt like it belonged to someone else. 1 Mega Millions ticket, please. Quick pick. Numbers or quick pick? Quick pick. He printed it. The machine whirred. The little slip of paper, flimsy and warm, slid out. It cost $2. I looked at it. A random string of numbers. A receipt for my last shred of foolishness. And then, standing there in the fluorescent glare, surrounded by racks of chips and sugary drinks I could never buy, I thought, what's the point? If I was going to be a fool, I might as well be a thorough one. If this was my rebellion, let it be complete. Actually, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, give me 3 more, all quick pick. I handed over the remaining $6. He printed 3 more slips. I now held $8 worth of printed dreams and $0 for food. I tucked the tickets into the inner pocket of my coat, a secret so absurd it felt sacred. The drawing was at 11 p.m. I didn't watch it. I gave the kids toast with a thin scrape of peanut butter for dinner, promising pancakes tomorrow, a promise I had no idea how to keep. I put them to bed, read a story, and then sat in the dark living room staring at the wall. I didn't take the tickets out. I didn't check the numbers online. It felt like acknowledging the fantasy would make the reality of my empty cupboard more brutal. Sleep, when it came, was thin and haunted. Saturday morning was overcast. The kids, sensing the tightness in my shoulders, were quiet. We had cereal with water because the milk was gone. The dream jar sat, still unbroken, on the windowsill. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Around noon, driven by a morbid curiosity, I turned on the small TV we used for DVDs. The local news was on. After the weather, the anchor smiled. And now, some life-changing news for someone in our city. Last night's Mega Millions drawing yielded a single winning ticket for the second-tier prize. That's $1 million, and it was sold right here at the Quick Mart on Elm and 5th. My breath hitched. Elm and 5th. That was my corner store. My heart began to hammer, a frantic bird against my ribs. No, it couldn't be. That's for other people. With trembling hands, I pulled the 4 slips of paper from my coat pocket, which was still hanging by the door. I fumbled for my phone, Googled the winning numbers. The jackpot numbers: 14, 27, 33, 48, 59. Megaball, 12. I scanned my first ticket. Nothing. The second. Nothing. The third. My eyes blurred. I had to wipe them. I looked again. 14, 27, 33, 48, 59. Megaball, 9. I stared. I counted. I compared. The first 5 numbers. They were all there. All 5. The megaball was wrong. It wasn't the jackpot. But the news, the second-tier prize, $1 million. A sound escaped me, a choked gasp that was half sob, half laugh. Mia looked up from her coloring book. "Mommy?" I couldn't speak. I just held out the ticket, my hand shaking violently. I pointed at the TV, then back at the numbers. The next few hours were a surreal blur. Disbelief so profound it felt like madness. I called the lottery hotline from a payphone, not wanting to use my traceable cell. A recorded voice confirmed it. I had matched 5 numbers. I was a winner. I needed to sign the back of the ticket and contact the lottery claims office on Monday. I walked home, the ticket clutched in my sweaty hand, tucked into my jeans pocket. $1 million. After taxes, it would be about, I didn't even know, more money than I had ever dreamed of. It was an abstract number, too big to comprehend. But $400 for rent? That I could comprehend. Groceries? I could comprehend that. A doctor's visit without panic? New coats for the winter? Shoes for Mia that didn't have a hole in the toe? I sat the kids down. We had a bit of luck, I said, my voice trembling. We're going to be okay. More than okay. The first thing I did on Monday, after dropping the kids at school, was go to a reputable law firm I found online. I paid a $500 consultation fee from the last of my credit card, my hand steady now. I need to claim a lottery prize anonymously, and I need a financial advisor, I told the lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Susan Choi. She didn't blink. With her help, we set up a trust. The ticket was claimed by the trust. My name was nowhere on the public record. The lump sum after-tax payout was $680,000. It was a number on a screen in an account I controlled, but that felt entirely separate from me. I didn't quit my job, not immediately. I went to work on Monday. When Mr. Borowski handed me my paycheck, conspicuously short $200, I took it. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just looked at him and said, "Thank you." The confusion on his face was my first small taste of a new kind of power, the power of silence. That afternoon, I gave Mrs. Henderson an envelope with $5,000 in cash. "For your kindness," I said. She cried. So did I. We didn't move to a mansion. We moved to a clean, safe, 2-bedroom apartment in a better school district. I bought a reliable used car. I filled the pantry with food, real food, not just bulk carbs. I took the kids to the doctor and the dentist for checkups that weren't emergencies. I bought them new clothes, and I broke the dream jar to put the $4.67 into a real savings account for our beach trip. But the most important thing I did was think. The money was a bridge, not a destination. It was a chance to breathe, to plan, to build something that wouldn't vanish if I spent it. I remembered the data entry warehouse, the soul-crushing monotony of it. But also, I remembered the system. It was outdated, clunky, a patchwork of old software that caused constant errors and delays. I'd had ideas, in my exhausted, half-asleep state, about how to streamline it. Simple, logical fixes no one in management ever listened to. With Susan Choi's guidance, I took a portion of the money and enrolled in an online course for basic business administration and bookkeeping. It was hard with the kids and my remaining shifts, but for the first time, I was learning for a future, not just surviving the present. 6 months after the win, I quit QuickClean. I walked into Mr. Greer's office at the warehouse. He looked up, annoyed. "Mendez, you got some nerve showing up here." "I'm not here for a job, Mr. Greer," I said calmly. "I'm here to make a proposal. You have a 15% error rate in your data processing. It causes rework, delays, and client complaints. I have a software solution and a revised workflow that can cut that to under 3%. I'll implement it for you on a contract basis. My fee is $5,000 for the setup and training, plus a monthly retainer of $800 for maintenance and support." He laughed, a harsh, dismissive bark. "You? You cleaned floors and typed numbers." "I observed," I said, placing a simple, professional proposal on his desk. It outlined the problems, my solutions, and the cost savings for his company. I'd spent weeks preparing it. "The error logs are from the last quarter. My analysis is on page 3. The choice is yours. You can keep losing time and money, or you can try my way." He glanced at it, skepticism warring with the sight of his own company's damning data, which I'd compiled meticulously. Greed won. "Fine, a 1-month trial. You get it done in your spare time. $2,000 flat, no retainer." It was a low ball, but it was a foot in the door. Agreed. I worked day and night for that month. I used some of my capital to license user-friendly, cloud-based software. I designed simple, clear input forms and automated cross-checking rules. I trained the weary, skeptical staff, not as a boss, but as one of them. I spoke their language of frustration. At the end of the month, the error rate was 2.1%. Client complaints dropped. Productivity went up. Mr. Greer paid me the $2,000, grudgingly. Then he said, "About that retainer." I had my first client. Word spread. Small businesses, especially other light industrial and service contractors, had the same messy, expensive back-office problems. I started Mendez Efficiency Solutions. It wasn't glamorous. It was spreadsheets, software, and common sense. But it solved real problems. I worked from home, setting my own hours, being there when the kids got off the school bus. The lottery money gave me the runway to start the business without starving. It paid for the courses, the software licenses, a decent computer. It was the safety net that allowed me to take the risk. But the business itself, that was built on my sweat, my observation, and the skills I taught myself. It generated a real, steady, growing income. $800 a month became $2,000, then $4,000. 2 years later, I sit in my home office in our modest but comfortable apartment. The view is of a tree-lined street, not a brick wall. I'm reviewing a contract for a new client, a small chain of laundromats. My phone pings. It's a text from Mia, sent from the school tablet I can now afford to pay for. Got an A on my science project. Love you. Leo, his strep throat a distant memory, is at after-school soccer, a luxury I once could only imagine. The lottery ticket is framed, hanging in a discreet corner of my office. Susan Choi's idea. A reminder of the catalyst, she said. But it's not what I see as my salvation. I see the first invoice I ever sent to Greer Warehousing. I see my business license. I see the spreadsheet that tracks our growing college savings accounts for the twins. The desperation of that cold night, the feel of that flimsy ticket, the void I felt staring at the calculator. They are etched in my memory. They keep me grounded. The money bought us stability and a chance. But it was the choice I made after, to learn, to build, to turn a moment of insane luck into a foundation of diligent work that bought us our future. I am not a lottery winner. I am a business owner. I am a provider. I am a mother who no longer has to choose between her child's medicine and her family's dinner. The fear is gone, replaced by a quiet, hard-earned confidence. The wind still blows outside, but now we are warm.